ahead.
All right, please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Thank you all for attending this evening. Kay, could you call the roll?
Harold,
Present.
Hollenbach,
Here?
Leontis,
Here.
Phipps,
Here.
Robinette,
Here.
Roland,
Here.
Zanfordino.
Here.
Okay, the minutes from our October 5th meeting were distributed to you all prior to tonight's meeting. Are there any additions or corrections to the minutes? All right, seeing none, do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, properly moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. All right, correspondence, Kay, do we have any correspondence this evening?
Yes, the only thing I have this evening is the financial budget summary report for the month of September 2020 was distributed to you prior to the meeting. That's all I have.
Lobby visitations.
There are no lobby visitors.
Introduction of new legislation.
Mr. President,
Mr. Robinette.
from the Finance and Ways and Means Committee, I have two ordinances. First, an ordinance providing supplemental appropriations for the current expenses and other expenditures of the city of Bowling Green, Ohio during the fiscal year beginning January 1st, 2020 and ending December 31st, 2020. And an ordinance amending and adopting Section 33.04 of the codified ordinances of the city of Bowling Green, Ohio relative to pay scales for seasonal employees.
Mr. President,
Mr. Leontis.
I have, I believe, 4 ordinances. First one is an ordinance vacating the utility easement at 1438 Conneaut Avenue. The second is an ordinance authorizing the utilities director to advertise for bids and enter into a contract or contracts for supplying annual inventory requirements, underground and overhead lines insurance, sale of scrap materials, and participation in AMP's Joint Purchasing Program 2021. Number 3, ordinance authorizing the utilities director to advertise for bids and enter into a contract or contracts for carbon dioxide chemical feed system at the water treatment plant. And finally, an ordinance authorizing the utilities director to advertise for bids and enter into a contract or contracts for elevator repairs also at the water treatment plant.
Okay, thank you very much. Official reports, Mr. Mayor.
I have no report this evening, pending any questions that you might have.
Are there any questions for the mayor? All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Municipal Administrator, Ms. Treader.
Good evening. Per previously, as we've done, we have limited staff here this evening to keep the numbers down in the room. City Attorney Marsh is here, as is Utilities Director O'Connell. On behalf of Public Works Director Kraft, sharing a quick update on our October brush pickup. That window to sign up for that is now closed. We had 514 folks who signed up for our October brush pickup. If people did miss that deadline, there is an option that people can take items to the landfill and dispose of them there. Maple Street paving was scheduled for earlier in this week, but weather has delayed us. And it is now slated for later in this week, assuming that the weather cooperates with us. And that completes the report this evening, subject to your questions.
Are there any questions for Ms. Treader?
Yes, Mr. President. Thanks, Lori. Is there any information on when the leaf pickup will start in town?
At this time, it is scheduled to begin on November 9th.
Thank you.
Oh, Mr. President, I do have one thing, Lori. I did
Sure.
get a question the other day I couldn't answer about the program to put address labels on the garbage cans. Could you update us on how, what's involved there for citizens? Somebody simply asked, they'd left their cans out all day and nothing happened.
Right. Well, when we get into an area, we ask for quite a while that folks leave it out all day. It is a very labor intensive process for them to go around and match it up and so forth. So they do put out information trying to encourage them to, leave them out. I don't know if Joe, who kind of keeps track of that, has any more information on that. Yeah, it's literally one person who does that just at the end of that day. So I know, for example, on my street, I haven't gotten mine yet, and I've been in the area they've been targeting, and I just leave it out every time until the end of the day.
Is it,
now.
is it targeted area on the website or?
They've been putting out information, I believe.
Or is it in the weekly
I think they've been
newsletters?
doing it on the day of your pickup. So like, I think right now it's Tuesday, folks. And is that right?
But-
Yeah.
I just want to point, but, okay, but it's in the e-news, the update, okay.
Yeah.
That's helpful, thank you.
So, and then they'll go back, for somebody, pulls them in too early and they still have an address there. But we do hope that that program helps people keep track of their cans there. And they do look a little nicer than the places where they spray painted on the cans. So looks a little more orderly. We like those things to look orderly.
Lori, I seem to recall some instructions saying leave the receptacles out till 4 p.m.
Correct.
Is that still the case?
Yes, in
Okay.
the third and fourth ward right now. If they've already received their sticker, go ahead and take
Right.
it back in whenever your garbage has been picked up and you're available to do that. Otherwise, we are asking that folks leave it out till 4 p.m. so that if your street is on the list that day, we can get that sticker placed on there for you.
Thank you.
All right, thanks.
Yep. City Attorney, Mr. Marsh. Okay, thank you very much. Utilities Director, Mr. O'Connell. Other questions for Mr. O'Connell? All right, thank you very much. Council Committee reports.
Mr. President,
Mr. Harold.
I have 3 items. First, the Transportation and Safety Committee met on October 13th and discussed Share Rose. And I want to add that I have literally, without exaggeration, been to thousands of Bowling Green City meetings in my travails throughout the decades. And I would say that meeting the other day was pretty unusual. So we did not, we did get something resolved for about 12 minutes. And then it was unresolved. So at this point, in the future, there will be a need to circle back after we get more information and again, discuss Share Rose. So that was the Transportation and Safety Committee meeting of October 13th. There is a Transportation and Safety Committee meeting scheduled for November 3rd. That's before our November 3rd council meeting. I originally had,
Right, that's November 2nd.
second, you're right, third's something else going on.
I feel so good. I got to correct you for once.
Good.
I enjoyed it more.
Everybody, for some odd reason, enjoyed it. So on November 2nd, there is a Transportation and Safety Committee meeting. It was originally scheduled for 6:30, but in light of the most recent previous meeting, I have gone ahead and changed that to 6 o'clock. So our Transportation and Safety Committee meeting, November 2nd at 6 o'clock. And then, the main discussion point, although there may be an update on Share Rose as well, the main discussion point is to cover safety-related items that may be something that should be discussed in anticipation of next year's budget. So there are a number of safety-related items that probably we ought to discuss and perhaps decide on so that can be incorporated into next year's budget. The Sidewalk Commission meeting met last October 13th and covered the past, the present, the future, as well as a very important discussion about the Sidewalk Commission's role as a partner with Public Works. And the next meeting is not needed until early to mid-February, so that we can come up with a possible revision, but at least review of a list of potential sidewalks for work. And those are my 3 committee reports.
Thank you. Any other reports?
Yes, Mr. President.
Mr. Robinette?
This evening at 6 PM, the Finance and Ways and Means Committee met and received a update on the city's finances from Director Brian Bouchong. There really were no questions from the committee regarding that report. Additionally, prior to that meeting, members of the committee received a third quarter refuse and recycling report to review with the opportunity to ask questions about it. There were no questions concerning that report either. The meeting was exactly as it was intended, to provide information to the committee as well as the full council as we prepare for the upcoming budget process. Also, we confirmed that the next meeting of the Finance Committee will be December 3rd at 5 PM for the purpose of holding a hearing on the 2021 budget.
Did you say 5 o'clock?
Yes, 5 PM on December 3rd. And that's the end of my report.
Hey, are there any other council committee reports? I would like to take advantage of this moment. I scheduled a meeting for a meeting of the whole, for the purpose of discussing the licensing and registration of rental properties for November 7th. That is a Saturday at 10 a.m. I'd like to just kind of let people know where I'm coming at, my mind is on this. This is one of the things that we had on our list of things to do after we set our priorities this year, and we came out of the gate rather rapidly on it. And much like everything else on our list, it kind of got shot down due to COVID, and we had to focus more on just sort of keeping the lights on. I've wrestled with this since summer as to when we could get back to this. And over the last month, I've spent a lot of time thinking about it. And I didn't like the fact that it was just hanging out there. One thing COVID seems to make clear is that there's a great deal of anxiety and uncertainty in people's lives. And having this out there causes people to, not know what's going to come of it. And I wanted to have this meeting. Initially, I had thought, well, maybe we'll be able to wrap this up. But over the past several weeks, in my other job as a school teacher and just in general, I've noticed that COVID seems to be getting worse and not better. And uncertainty and anxiety seem to be growing rather than diminishing. And so I wouldn't want us to necessarily do something that would have unintended consequences. There are a number of people in our community that are currently unemployed. I don't know how many. I'm sure there are people in our community who are behind in their rent payments. And again, I don't know how many. And I wouldn't want us to take an action that could lead to difficulties for any individuals in the community, especially with the way things are going. You never know from week to week if more people will be going back to work or more people will be getting laid off. So I'm approaching this meeting on the 7th as a discussion among the members of council as to how we want to proceed. What sort of schedule we would like to set for this, more than actually wrapping this thing up right now. I would like to set up some sort of timetable as to what we might do and possibly look at an initial step, something that perhaps the Community Improvement Committee recommended, that is something we can do to get the ball rolling, something that there's a consensus that regardless of what we come up with in the future on this, this is a component that is going to need to be in place. Those are just my feelings. I just wanted to share those ahead of time as to what my expectations of the meeting on November 7th would be, but we can have an open discussion about whatever anyone wants to discuss with regard to this topic. So that meeting will be on November 7th, 10 a.m.
And will that meeting be until noon or 1 o'clock?
It'll be until it's over,
Okay. Pack a lunch, huh?
so perhaps,
Mr. President,
yes.
I fully concur with your approach. One of the things that this year has done is it certainly has introduced, like you said, anxiety. COVID has had ebb and flow. One of the things that's difficult to gauge is when it's going to ebb and when it's going to flow. And one of the reasons that we put a number of issues on the back burner was because of the constrained ways of getting public input. And as far as the Community Improvement Committee, we saw that we had lots of input because it happened before COVID really hit hard on what to do. And that was used, as John so ably led the committee. So we came up with our 5-page recommendation. Well, it's a subset of the 5 pages because we also have other items in there. And the thought was to come to what we did, come to the conclusion that we came to, and then formulate legislation after input from council, and then go through another phase of seeking public input, not in general, but over the specific legislation. Now that's the ideal when we get public input. And we haven't been able to do that. And we still aren't able to do that. So that's all to say that your course of action of going at it in a manner of mapping out the steps is good, because even if we had some sort of legislation, we wouldn't be able to get the public input we need off of that specific legislation. And then also, as you rightly referenced, the Community Improvement Committee did think of it as a phased approach. So perhaps what we could do is, when we convene on November 7th, come up with, okay, regardless of how we go, would this be the next sensible step? For example, just as an example, if we're going to be doing this, getting a listing and a log and certain information about rentals in the city, that can proceed. Because if that's all that's done, that's helpful. And if we do anything else, that's a needed component. But to figure out the listing of rentals, we also needed to figure out what information we need. So that's just an example of perhaps something that could be an outcome of the meeting is, all right, we don't have the whole thing set yet, but we do know we need this next step. So that's a very long-winded answer. I apologize. I don't generally do that. But it's just to say I fully concur with your way of approaching it.
Okay. Yeah, so something that I'd like to see come out of that meeting is possibly a first step and also some sort of schedule or timetable as to how we decide when we can move forward with it, taking into account the limit of public input that we have at this time. Anything else, council committee-wise? All right, brings us to the reading of legislation.
Legislation for first reading. Ordinance number 8872 for first reading. Ordinance providing supplemental appropriations for the current expenses and other expenditures of the City of Bowling Green, Ohio during the fiscal year beginning January 1, 2020 and ending December 31, 2020.
Mr. President,
Mr. Robinette.
I move to suspend the rules and give ordinance 8872 its second and third readings.
Second.
Properly moved and seconded. Kay, could you call the roll?
Hollenbaugh,
Yes.
Leontis,
Yes.
Phipps,
Yes.
Robinette,
Yes.
Roland,
yes,
Zanfordino,
Yes.
Harold.
Yes.
Okay. Rules are suspended for ordinance 8872.
Ordinance number 8872 for second and third reading, ordinance providing supplemental appropriations for the current expenses and other expenditures of the City of Bowling Green, Ohio during the fiscal year beginning January 1, 2020 and ending December 31, 2020.
Mr. President,
Mr. Robinette.
I move to adopt ordinance 8872.
second,
Properly moved and seconded. Kay?
Leontis,
Yes.
Phipps,
Yes.
Robinette,
Yes.
Roland,
yes,
Zanfordino,
Yes.
Harold,
Yes.
Hollenbaugh.
Yes. All right. Ordinance 8872 is adopted.
Ordinance number 8873 for first reading, ordinance amending and adopting section 33.04 of the codified ordinances of the City of Bowling Green, Ohio relative to pay scales for seasonal employees. Ordinance number 8874 for first reading, ordinance vacating the utility easement at 1438 Conneaut Avenue. Ordinance number 8875 for first reading, ordinance authorizing the utilities director to advertise for bids and enter into a contract or contracts for supplying annual inventory requirements, underground and overhead lines insurance, sale of scrap materials, and participation in the AMP Joint Purchasing Program in 2021. Ordinance number 8876 for first reading. Ordinance authorizing the utilities director to advertise for bids and enter into a contract or contracts for carbon dioxide chemical feed system at the water treatment plant.
Now, are we,
Ordinance number,
oh, yeah. Are we moving on any of these today or,
no.
Nope, just one reading.
okay.
Ordinance number 8877 for first reading, ordinance authorizing the utilities director to advertise for bids and enter into a contract or contracts for elevator repairs at the water treatment plant. Legislation for second reading, resolution number 3778 for second reading, resolution implementing sections 3735.65 through 3735.70 of the Ohio Revised Code, establishing and describing the boundaries of the Bowling Green Community Reinvestment Area Number 7 in the city of Bowling Green and designating a housing officer to administer this program. Resolution number 3779 for second reading, resolution implementing sections 3735.65 through 3735.70 of the Ohio Revised Code, establishing and describing the boundaries of the Bowling Green Community Reinvestment Area Number 8 in the city of Bowling Green and designating a housing officer to administer this program. Ordinance number 8870 for second reading, ordinance amending and adopting section 35.70 of the codified ordinances of the city of Bowling Green, Ohio regarding city fees and fees charged for services. Legislation for third reading, resolution number 3777 for third reading. Resolution authorizing the sale of obsolete or unfit municipally owned personal property, which is not needed for public use, by internet auction and authorizing the municipal administrator to enter into a contract with GovDeals Incorporated for ongoing internet auctions for calendar year 2021.
Mr. President,
Mr. Robinette.
I move to adopt resolution 3777.
second,
Properly moved and seconded. Kay, could you call the roll?
Phipps,
Yes.
Robinette,
Yes.
Roland,
yes,
Zanfordino,
Yes.
Harold,
Yes.
Hollenbaugh,
Yes.
Leontis.
Yes.
All right. Resolution 3777 is adopted. Is there any other business to come before council this evening? Okay. Seeing none, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved. Second.
Okay, moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. We are adjourned.
That wasn't hard to get that, was it?
That's always the easiest thing.